Scrolling checkpoint, you can only pass if you share a fun fact. I want to learn something.
What if I told you that if you get scurvy, you could end up with all your wounds reopening? Yes, all of them, even ones that are decades old. Your body doesn't just heal a wound and move on forever. It is constantly working to keep those old injuries closed. And it does it with collagen. However, collagen isn't permanent. Your body continuously breaks down old collagen and replaces it with fresh material. And to do this, it needs vitamin C. As you know, you get scurvy when you don't eat enough vitamin C. And without vitamin C, you can't replenish scar tissue. And without scar tissue, all your wounds will reopen. There are cases of sailors' wounds reopening on ship, the most famous being Lord Anson's disastrous voyage, where he set out with 2,000 men and only came home with 200. Because lots of the sailors had been involved in the Battle of the Boyne, their war wounds opened up as if they'd just been cut, and one man's broken leg re-broke, splintering the bone. Women didn't start giving birth lying on their backs because it helped. It became a thing because male doctors found it easier and more comfortable to watch and manage. For centuries, women gave birth squatting, kneeling upright. Then men took over childbirth, decided standing women were inconvenient, and flattened them out so they could see better and feel in control. And now, hundreds of years later, women are still pushed into a position all because a bunch of men wanted a better angle. Your brain can't actually feel pain. The brain processes pain signals from the body, but the brain tissue itself has no pain receptors. So when you get a headache, the pain isn't coming from your brain, it's coming from nearby structures like blood vessels, nerves, and the meninges. Sincerely, a nerdy neuroscientist. Here's a fun one that tends to surprise people. Octopuses have 3 hearts, and 2 of them stop beating when they swim. That's why octopuses prefer crawling along the ocean floor instead of swimming long distances. Swimming basically exhausts them. Bonus twist: their blood is blue because it uses copper instead of iron like ours to transport oxygen.
A fun fact for the checkpoint, task paralysis is never a dead battery. It is a RAM issue. When you sit there unable to start a task, 100% of your memory is actively calculating how to start. It leaves 0 bandwidth for actual execution. To everyone else, you look frozen. Internally, your CPU is maxed out. You aren't lazy. It's a boot loop. Neurobiology. Fact: procrastination is a survival mechanism, not a character flaw. When your cognitive load spikes, like facing a vague to-do list, your brain registers the friction as a literal threat. Because your brain prioritizes survival over productivity, it actively forces an avoidance response, like scrolling your phone, to protect the hardware from crashing. Avoidance is not laziness, it is overload management. You aren't undisciplined. Your operating system is just protecting itself. Cinnamon is insoluble in water, but soluble in alcohol. So when making French toast, first put a tablespoon or so of vanilla extract in a bowl, then add a tablespoon of cinnamon and stir. The cinnamon will dissolve into the alcohol, and you can then add it to the eggs and milk, and you won't have clumps of cinnamon floating around. And the toast will be seasoned better. Pearls are more rare in the universe than diamonds. The chainsaw's first iteration was invented for childbirth. The stethoscope was invented by a male doctor who didn't feel comfortable touching a young lady's developing chest. Wow, how far we've come in the wrong direction. Dr. Pepper was made to taste like the smell of a pharmacy. Steve Buscemi was a volunteer firefighter during 9/11. When you walk into a room and immediately forget why you're there, it's because your internal processor has preformed an unnecessary memory dump, the same way a computer does. The brain does this regularly and uses thresholds as the impetus to do so. Therefore, if you keep what you're doing in the forefront of your mind, your internal processor will determine that information important and store it. This system can also be hacked. If you repeat a positive affirmation when you cross a threshold, "I'm an excellent chef," for example, your brain will decipher that as important and log it away. Microtherapy. Crows will warn their homies and kids if they got beef with you. They did a study of this in Japan. Kidnapped 5 crow wearing a masked face. Set the crows free. They would wear the masked face twice a year. Crows kept attacking them for the next 18 years. They would only wear the mask twice a year.
Every single day, your immune system identifies and kills cells that have mutated into potential cancer. These are cells that were one step away from forming a tumor that could end your life. You have almost had cancer thousands of times. You just happened to win the lottery today.
The middle finger comes from a war long ago that happened between England and Britain. The archers used their middle fingers to draw back the bowstrings, so when the enemy would capture them, they would cut them off. Well, a bunch of archers escaped and started flipping off the enemy to show they still had their middle fingers.
One of my fave things I learned in high school. Sunsets glow red and orange because sunlight is made of color waves. As the Earth spins, the sun dips lower, and its light travels through more atmosphere. Short blue and green waves scatter, leaving the long red and orange waves to reach our eyes. That's why at sunset, the only waves we mostly see are the long red and orange ones. There's a T-Rex specimen with a healed broken foot. She would have been unable to walk for months, and she survived. That probably means another T-Rex was feeding and protecting her. Also, we know she was female because she was carrying eggs when she died. I'm yelling because it is very important that you know this.
Emotions were something that came way later down the line when humans evolved. The origin of emotions lies in the sense of smell. Apparently, we developed disgust to protect ourselves from potentially venomous substances when looking for something to eat, and as time progressed and all our senses became more refined and we developed consciousness, we developed emotions. Emotions are important because giving things emotional way is what even allows us to make decisions to begin with. Emotional tears have a higher protein concentration than the tears you cry chopping onions. That makes them thicker. That makes them fall slower down your face. Your body is making sure someone sees you cry. You are, at the molecular level, a creature that needs to be seen.
1. Before the Little Prince, the most translated story/non-religious text was Pinocchio. 2. Young owls will lay on their stomachs or face down until they're ready to leave the nest. Their heads are too heavy for their bodies.
Rapidly moving water, such as in waterfalls, breaking waves, or mist, ionizes the surrounding air by creating strong electric fields, a phenomenon often called the Leonard effect. This process breaks water droplets, releasing negatively charged ions into the air. Ionized air has the ability to break through emotional blockages, fear, and anxiety. It is seen as a way to boost one's spiritual, emotional, and physical immune system, offering a soul bath. That's why we love the beach and waterfalls. Here's a good one. A day on Venus is longer than its year. It takes Venus about 243 Earth days to rotate once, one full spin. But it only takes about 225 Earth days to orbit the sun. So technically on Venus, you'd celebrate New Year's before you'd celebrate tomorrow. Bonus, Venus also rotates backwards, so the sun would rise in the west and set in the east. Space is weird.
A horse's heart generates a powerful electromagnetic field, estimated to be 5 times larger than a human's and extending up to 15 to 20 feet around them. This coherent, low-frequency field can influence human heart rate variability, HRV, promoting calm, reducing stress, and fostering physiological harmony when in close proximity. My favorite random fact is probably every rainbow you see is uniquely yours. Sunlight bends inside millions of raindrops, but only the droplets sending light at the right angle reach your eyes. So someone standing next to you is actually seeing a rainbow formed by different droplets.
Fun fact, your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined story and a real memory. That's why storytelling shapes identity more than we realize. Just as dogs lack the ability to self-realize, thus why they bark at themselves in a mirror, humans have a limited cognitive perception of reality. We see only what our brain permits us to see and deletes things it finds irrelevant or repetitive, such as why you don't see your nose or yourself blinking. So it's entirely possible we're living amongst aliens right now, but they're so far beyond our comprehension that our brain just edits them out.
All right, I learned something new. Now you go, what's a fun fact I probably don't know? Best one goes in part 2.